Thank you guys for jumping on. For those of you guys watching the playback, glad you guys are watching this. I am joined with special guest Michael Ambrosino. I met him through a series of networking. I networked with this guy over Instagram in California, and he connected me to Justin. And through that, I got plugged into the Epic Impact awesomeness, their crew. It's just fantastic. So I've been a part of that since April. And through that, I connected with Michael and we went to church, and we had a fantastic time. I love Michael's style, his approach. He's very calm, and he's very influential because he's listening, and he's very curious. And so that just inspired me. Is there's something to his ability to draw people in and to motivate and influence them. And I think a big part of that has to do with his calmness and his ability to be curious and to listen to people. So he's doing big things with, he's done a couple of things in the past. He can share that, but he's doing big things with Epic Impact, based out of San Francisco. Fantastic company. Can't say enough about the people that I'm working with there, including Michael. So with that, I'll give it to you, and I'll just mute everybody and you can have it.
Awesome. So for those that are tuning in live right now, for those that are going to be tuning in the future, just want to encourage you as we live these super fast-paced lives to take a quick breath and just be. In a marketplace and a society where there's just so much noise, it's great sometimes to just be that pillar for people of steadiness and confidence and wholesomeness. And what I'm here to share with you guys today is about your environment, and not just your current environment, but how to expand it. And for everybody on this call, there's a few different ways. When we talk about environment, we could talk about how to positively build relationships with the people that you currently have there. And we can also talk about entering new people into that environment. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about both. And, in every interaction, I was just thinking about this before coming on this call. I asked David, what are some things you want me to highlight? And, he mentioned a couple things, and just remember that every conversation we have with people is an opportunity to sincerely change their life. And if you were present to that, you thought about it every time that you had a conversation with someone, what will the possibilities be? It doesn't mean that you have to change someone's life every time you talk to them. And as a matter of fact, it's very improbable. But what if for that conversation that you have with that person, you could be the most present person they talk to all day, all week, all month, all year, ever? What if you could just let them feel like they're being seen more than they've ever felt that way? What if you allowed for them to just feel safe and feel comfortable to share what's really true for them, what's really going on? And all these things, there's so many words tossed around there. Authenticity, vulnerability, it's all great. And at the end of the day, the only thing that we can be is ourselves. And we have a choice. We can be what we think everybody wants us to be and project out that version of us that says the things that we say, or is kind of got the canned responses, or we could just be. And someone told me purpose of life is to know thyself and to be thyself. And you only get one chance. So I encourage you, just in hearing this, to just ask yourself the question, who you are. And whatever that truly means for you is beautiful and perfect. So I'm going to talk a little bit about just growing your network and, you know, also nurturing your current network. And I think a place where people never start, which is where I always try and start, is why are you trying to build a network in the first place? What's your intention? Is it to make more money? Which is fine. Is it to feel like you have more community? That's beautiful. Is it to have people that you can bounce ideas off of? Amazing. And it's going to look different for me than it does for you. And I just encourage you to really take the time to think about why you're building a network, and think about the intention you want behind it. Because if you set an intention, people will feel it. And if the intention is like, I want to make more money in this, then you're probably going to wind up across the paths with people that share a similar vision. And same holds true if you're just starving for community, or if you're looking to just have a peer group that holds you accountable. So set that intention of what you want the network to be, and think about who are the types of people you want to meet. Naturally, we all have people that are in proximity to us, right? And David, I'm not sure how you met Tammy and Philip, but maybe it was because they both live in Houston, right? Which proximity is often a reason that we meet people. We cross paths with them. We work with them. Go to the same church. We are part of the same book club. There's so many ways in which our lives just put us in front of people. We go to the same gym. Our sons play on the same baseball team. Like, there's just so many ways that we are surrounded by people. And, you have an opportunity to just make a choice of perhaps being a little bit more intentional of who you're around. And think about why you're trying to meet the types of people you're trying to meet. For me, I'm just always looking to meet people that are going to give me a different wrinkle and perspective on stuff. I look at things through my lens, just as you guys look at things through your lens. And it's often really valuable, I've found, to just get a different side of the coin. Even if you don't agree with it, to just get a greater grasp of where the other side's coming from. And I'm always trying to meet people that are going to inspire me to take greater action, to be more myself, to go after bigger things, to be a better partner to my partner, to be a better family man. I'm always looking to level up. And think about, what are some things you want to learn? Maybe you want to learn how to play the guitar. Probably be a pretty good idea to put yourself in proximity to people that play instruments. Maybe you want to learn how to public speak. Probably be a good idea to join something like a Toastmasters, of people that are already practicing the things that you want to learn. And so if there are specific things that you do want to learn, putting yourself in direct proximity to those things is going to allow the probability of you gaining that skill, or having a greater understanding of that skill, monumentally. And so I just encourage you to really think about, what are some of the things you'd want to learn? If you were in this position where the world was your oyster, which we are, there's so much information out there, what would you want to learn? If we could be like little kids again, right? Where we just ask ourselves, man, like, I could do anything. And we don't have this years and years of experience telling us that there's things that we can't do. Like, what would you want? And to be playful and light, and think about some of those things, and realize that someone's out there doing it. Um, and so I think something that a lot of people kind of have this dislike of networking events, or having to go out and meet new people at times under different circumstances. And I just find that that's because, at least here in San Francisco, and I might be in a bubble, but the first question I get asked is like, what do I do? Which for some people, what they do might be a direct reflection of who they are. It might be why they feel like they're here on this earth. But for some people, that's a small part of who they are. And what if we could, as I try to do, and as many conversations as I can, I'm surely not perfect. What if you just took an interest in the person and to find out what's really important to them and what really matters? And I find that when you get to that level of depth with people, it's often the same thing. They want to be loved. They want happiness. They want community. They want to feel like they can relate. They want to be a better, husband to their wife. They want to be a better mother to their children. They want to be a better brother to their siblings, better niece to their cousins, etc. And I think one thing I've worked really hard on is, what's, to me, the question that you should ask yourself is, what's the one intrinsic value that no matter who you meet, you can add value to them in this way? For me, the conversation I often try and have is one about their vision, as it's one that I've worked really hard on. And I've gotten a lot out of people asking me about that specific area for myself. And it's something I've asked a lot of people. So I've gotten a lot of different perspectives. And so for me, I know that no matter who I'm talking to, I can ask questions to them about their vision and know that I can dig deeper. And we all have that capability too, just as long as we're sincerely curious about it. Maybe somebody like David could be like, hey, I love photography, and I have an ability to really capture amazing photos. And, do you like taking photos? Cool. Why do you like taking photos? Well, it allows me to remember things, creates memories. Cool. What's the way you usually take photos? Cool. What do you wish you did better at taking photos? Can I show you something really cool that I've found really effective for me in taking photos? And all of a sudden, you're adding value to this person. And I'd like to think about where I currently am and think about the levels of relationships that I have with people, and think about the intention that you want for people. In this moment right here, maybe there's somebody that you have that comes to mind that you want a better relationship with, that you want to have what we call, in the context that I know David, crew, which is a Navy SEALs term for your needs are my needs, is what they say in the Navy SEALs. And so we use that term a lot. And maybe I want somebody in my crew where it's like I'm that close to them, where like my needs feel like their needs and vice versa. Or maybe I just want an acquaintance relationship with them where we catch up once a month, once a quarter, once a year, and just talk about some surface level stuff, which is totally fine. Catch up on the Houston Astros winning the World Series, right? Or catch up on the Texans, or catch up on something very light. Or maybe it's like once a year, you have a conversation about what your goals are for the year, and you catch up every year with that same person. Just have an idea of where you want that person to be and be open to that changing. And also have a plan of, how you want to treat the people that are in certain areas. And I don't mean treat people poorly, but I mean more of a time capacity. Like for the people that are in your crew, as I call it, what kind of dedication does that look like to them? Does that look like you give them a call once a week, once every 2 weeks, shoot them a text once a month? Like, think about it for yourself. Like, what is the quality relationship that you want to have, and what actions would dictate you having that level of quality of relationship with that person? And how do you continue to cultivate relationships? For some of us, and I use David as he's right here with me, like I'm probably going to see David about 4 times a year, give or take. But that doesn't mean that we can't continue to grow our relationship via the phone, or just as I'm doing now, where he asked me to be on this call. And it was an easy yes for me because he asked kindly, and I'm happy to help a crew brother who's asking for help in an area. And there's probably going to be a time where, perhaps David could help me with something. And I'm going to look forward to that moment. And I know that I served him here in this current instance, and he's going to be happy to reciprocate because I helped him. And that's what we do for one another. And it's not like a scoreboard thing either, right? Where it's like, oh, I helped David 10 times, like he owes me one big favor, right? Or whatever it looks like. There's not a level of keeping track or score. It's just knowing that you have that other person's back. And so to me, that's a level of relationship. It's like, who has my back? And I know it. Like, they got me. No matter what, I could call them like flat tire in the middle of the night, broken down car, middle of the road, and they'll come and fix it. And that's not everybody, right? Maybe that's your wife. Maybe that's your husband. Maybe that's your girlfriend. Maybe that's your boyfriend. Maybe that's your best friend. But think about how you want to continue to cultivate relationships. Is that more time with them? Maybe it is. Maybe it's not more time. Maybe it's more presence. Maybe it's, I know, I see Tammy and Philip here. Maybe it's like an extra date night. Or maybe it's like, hey, we put our phones down when we're with each other during dinner. And we just have gotten into this world where, from my understanding of your business, David, like social media plays a really big role in it. True. And it's so easy to just think about all the relationships that we have via this age of connectedness and connectivity. And there's just no replacement for a deep conversation with somebody who sees you for who you are and meets you exactly where you're at and loves you for who you are and exactly where you're at and doesn't hold judgment. And for you guys, I think about what are some more ways that you can cultivate relationships. Is it perhaps hosting events at your home? David mentioned, or Phil said to David, he's like, hey, you got to have everybody over to your house. And David was open to it. He's like, oh, only if you cook. And Phil was like, oh yeah, no problem. And so maybe it's something where, like, Phil, you like throwing a barbecue for people. I don't know. Or, David, sounds like you were pretty open to it. And from what it seems like, you have 4 kids. You might have a pretty big home. Like, maybe it's having a little gathering with everyone. And it's going to feel different to everybody. And what's your brand? Like, what's your flavor that feels really good to you? And for me, I like hosting events, and they look all different ways. At times, it's a dinner where I just get together 10 people, and like, there's no agenda, there's no topic. It's just good people and good food. And sometimes there is an agenda where it's like, hey, one of the things we do is like, hey, what are your thoughts on the future of leadership? And we just go around. It's not tense, it's loose, and it's like give and take what one person thinks, what the other person thinks. And we learn from each other. You can have an agenda and it be fun. Or maybe the agenda is like, hey, we eat dinner and then we play board games. Or maybe we watch our favorite television show together and it becomes a tradition. And when you continue to get to know people on a deeper level, you have a greater understanding of how you can add value to them specifically. And that only comes through deep listening and just being with the person. No phone, no computer, just there. Like they're the only thing that matters in the moment. And in an age where there's more distractions than ever before, to just be with someone is even that much more cherished. And think about how you feel when you have a conversation with somebody where there's no distraction and they're just there with you and you're enjoying it, the back and forth. Those are the moments when time flies and it's just beautiful. And in adding to your network, some of us might have the vision of having the biggest network. Some of it might be the most tight-knit network or whatever. But if you're looking to meet people, think about what are some actions you can take to continue to grow your network. And some of it might be like having a barbecue. Maybe it's going to another event. Maybe it's meetups. Maybe it's Eventbrite. Maybe it's a Facebook event that you see. Maybe it's parties. Maybe it's dinner. And if you're going to host your own event, try and make it feel like you. And for me, I'm pretty light and like I like to have fun. And I've hosted a lot of events where there's like spike ball and can jam and cornhole and just fun outdoor games because I like that stuff. And it feels like me. It feels like Michael. And for you, it might be like, hey, I'm a great cook. Like this is all about the meal. This is all about you enjoying the meal. Or maybe you're all about spirituality and you drop in with a meditation for people. Or maybe you have a community group like I'm a part of where you guys are able to share what's going on for you and also read from your sacred scripture if you're spiritual. And if not, no big deal either. But if I could share anything, it's just get intentional about what you want your network to look like, the types of people you want to connect with. What are actionable things that you can do to either further nurture the relationships that you have or create some new ones and master the value add conversation. And a way I usually like to end conversations is there anything I could do to help you or to further serve you? And the beautiful thing is we're humans and we like to reciprocate. And when you ask that question, the answer might be no, I'm good. How about you? And there might be something that's on your mind that you can get help with. And so that's really what I had to share, David. And I also want to like leave it open as the people that are on your team and the call best to just have an opportunity to ask some questions, or maybe there's some things that that I'm good at that maybe I didn't hit on, and we can just go from there.
No, I like it. I think the last question you posed was, how are you doing? Is there anything I can do for you? Like, that's such a great question. It's one that I definitely don't ask enough. And I think you're right that we tend to want to reciprocate. And when we offer that, we also open ourselves up to receive something like that. It's so important to do that. And it's also so important for us that whenever people offer that we're open to it. Like, I think a lot of times we get stuck in the giving mode and we're not about receiving. It's hard for us to receive because we're so used to giving. So I think in turn, the healthy balance to be well-rounded is to also receive. So tell me about do you ever get to a point where like you're planning events, or maybe you do an event once a month, or maybe it's once a week, and you're doing it around the things that you love, whether it's cornhole or something else? Do you ever feel like there's times when it's just forced? And so how do you identify that, where you're just kind of forcing the thing to happen? How do you get out of that?
Yeah. There was a time where I held myself to the standard of going to 2 networking events a week, which I just moved to San Francisco. I felt like this is where I moved. This is why I got to be here because I got to make all these connections. And it was all a story I was telling myself, right? And I recently had it happen where I got invited to this really cool event, like this boat trip with really cool people. And I had something or another planned for every other night that week, too. And I was just like, I went there and I turned around. I'm like, no, it just doesn't feel right to me. And the moments where, like, I think as somebody that hosts people, you feel the pressure to have high attendance for whatever reason, or you worry about who's going to show up. And I think the sooner you can drop the who's going to show up and just focus on the people that decided to show up, the right people always show up. And I believe that in our lives too. And just knowing that and cherishing the people that are there rather than focusing on what you don't have, focusing on what you have. So when it starts feeling that way, when it starts feeling forced, like really evaluate why does it feel that way? And for you, it might be because like I had that experience where I had so many other obligations that week and I just said yes because I said yes and I didn't want to disappoint someone. You got to take care of your own needs first.
David. Sorry about that. My kids were asking me a question. So when you're in the situation when you're networking, just say there's like 15 people there. Do you feel like you have to connect with all of them, or what's your strategy when you do have, say, a good attendance and something that you've thrown, or maybe something that you've attended, or is one good enough?
Yeah, that's a great question. Where you're hosting, you're saying?
Either or, whether you're hosting an event or you're going to an event, do you feel like you have to connect with everybody? Does that degrade the value of actually making a good connection, or do you just connect with one person? What's that look like for you?
Yeah, if I'm going to an event, I really like I feel like any event I ever go to, unless there's somebody I know I specifically want to meet, I'm just like if I walk away tonight with one new relationship that I feel like I'm going to keep, this was a win. And that's all I'm focused on. And that might be me having one conversation the whole time I'm there. And I don't have the fear of missing out on other people over there because I got what I was looking for. And if you're hosting your own event, yeah, I've definitely felt that way. Like I want to say hi to everybody, I want to make everybody feel welcome. And I think that kind of comes with, whenever I'm hosting something, I always want to have a little bit of a frame for the evening where it's like, hey, I brought everybody here together because y'all mean a lot to me. And if you're in this room, it's because you have the same values that I share. And if you have the same values that I share, it's very likely that you're going to connect with the people that are around you because that was the purpose of bringing you all together. And I might not have an opportunity to say hello to you tonight, but just know that I got love for you. That's why I invited you. And whether that's us having interacted for the last 10 years or maybe we've only met a couple times, just know that you're here because I wanted you here. And you mean a lot to me and enjoy.
Yeah, I think one of the things is that we have that kind of FOMO, the fear of missing out. And you see it primarily with like networking groups where you go to like a BNI and you have to just basically hand cards out and you never develop a good connection with one person because you're trying to spread it out across the board amongst 30 people or 40 people. And so just kind of reframing, changing the mindset where if you walk in and you only connect deeply with one person, that is good enough, right?
Yeah. And I think where most relationships die is on the second interaction.
Mm.
Most relationships never get to that point. Think of how many people in our lives we felt like we had a really good conversation with, and then this starts to happen, right? Where it's like, should I reach out to them? They haven't reached out to me. I don't want to see like I'm needy, or like I don't want to seem like I thought they were really cool. Like I want them to think that I'm really cool, so they have to reach out to me first, and just start playing these stupid juvenile games of all it is really ego, where we're like, oh man, like I'm scared to reach out because I haven't talked to this person in a long time. Is it going to be awkward? And we start creating these stories in our own head. And I find the best way to not do that, because, you know, if I hadn't talked to you in a long time, David, and you called me and like, I'm like, oh shoot, I hadn't talked to you in a long time. Be like, hey man, I really apologize. Like, I know we haven't chatted in a while, and I want to take some responsibility for that, man, because you do mean a lot to me. And I know my actions might not dictate that, but I would love if you were open to us just having a fresh start and getting back on the same page. How's that sound?
Yeah.
And you'd probably be like, dude, water under the bridge.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Let's move on. Yeah.
But you felt that I cared for that moment to acknowledge it. And that's what I find happens in a lot of relationships. And when people don't get along, it's like things just aren't acknowledged. And the elephant in the room is the elephant in the room. People see it. The writing's on the walls. And so just to name it and own it and take responsibility for it, I don't find that there are a lot of people that are doing that. And people just appreciate it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think you're right. I think a lot of relationships, even if it's business relationships, die on the follow-up. There is no follow-up because you feel like you don't have the right strategy to come into the second meeting.
Yeah.
So you just disengage altogether. So yeah, Tammy, Philip, or Gina, do you guys have any questions or maybe he didn't cover something you'd like to ask about networking or building your network or nourishing your network? You want me to unmute you guys?
Got it. No, I think we're good. There was some really good points here. Kind of cool. Gave me some thoughts to the things to do that I've been thinking of doing with my team. I think I'm going to go out and just make them happen.
Cool.
Yeah, I thought one of the things is, you know, talking with Michael another time we spoke, one of the good things that he shared with me was, you know, really know these people. Like sometimes you won't always know who you're meeting, but sometimes we do. Sometimes we know someone's like, just say like my wife, just say she's an introvert. So if she struggles with introversy, then maybe as I'm reading an article, then maybe I grab that article and send it to her, say, hey, I know you struggle with being an introvert. Check out this article that I read. And that's a great way to connect with people because you know what their interests are. And when you know what their interests are, and you send them stuff regarding their interests or something that they struggle with, that shows that you're paying attention. It shows that you're being intentional and that you're being proactive and that you're listening to them and that you're acknowledging them and that you want them to flourish. So I think being intuitive and being really listening to the people that you're talking to, so that it makes the second conversation so much easier because you have something to connect on, was one of the things that he shared with me last time we talked. It was great. And I wrote it down. I'm looking at it now because I wanted to make sure you guys got that, because I thought that was a good way to connect with people as well.
Yeah. Follow up on people's interests. Shocker.
Follow up on people's interests.
Yeah. And don't ever feel afraid to send someone some love. When's the last time you got a text or a phone call where it's like, hey, I was just calling to tell you like how much you mean to me, where you're like, really, that's why you're calling me? You're always welcome to that. And just, maybe it's just me, but I've never expressed gratitude or appreciation to someone and felt worse afterwards.
That's such a good point. Like I could just think back to my last 10 conversations. With every conversation, I had an agenda. And it wasn't one of gratitude. It wasn't one to build them up. It was to get something. I was trying to mine some information. And it was about me. It wasn't about like adding value or playing on their interests or just adding value to them. That's an interesting point. I'm writing that down because I forget that. We forget that just because we get so busy in the brain.
We never have enough time.
Yeah. Cool. Any other questions? I don't want to take too much of his time. I really appreciate your jumping on with us. So a couple more questions maybe. If not, we'll end this on a high note. Good. Well, Michael, I appreciate you jumping on, man. It means a lot. If you don't mind, just kind of share kind of what you're doing and how they can find you if they want to find you or get some more information. Just kind of do a shameless plug.
Yeah. I'm not like all over the place or anything like that. I actually really value my privacy. And just, if you ever wanted to reach out, you just shoot me an ad on Facebook and you just remind me how we met. And yeah, happy to keep having a conversation. And here at Epic Impact, we work with top sales performers and sales leaders and helping them master their skill sets of influence. But what we're really focused on is helping people step into an identity of what they really want and getting clear on what they really want and who they're really meant here to be on this earth. And I know that sounds big, and sometimes those questions are really challenging, but that's why we're here, to help decipher some of those bigger questions that are really challenging to think about alone. Believe me, I know, because that's how I got started on this journey. Perfect. Yeah. Gina typed something. Oh, cool.
She's good. Well, sweet. Again, I appreciate it. I thank you. I thank you for the value that you added. I will say this for anybody watching the replay. If you do have questions, maybe something he didn't quite hit on, or maybe something you're curious, just kind of funnel those through me, and then I'll maybe get them to him, and then we can kind of give you that feedback. But thank you again, everybody, for joining us. And for those of you watching the replay, I appreciate it. Michael, you're awesome, man. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you. We'll talk to you tonight, or we'll see you tonight.
Yeah, thanks. And I appreciate you guys for being on the call. Yeah, right. You can be doing anything you want right now, and you're spending some time with me. So I appreciate it.
All right, guys.